Hello?
So, coming up, your parents are both educators. You're the youngest of three siblings, and both of them, are off in school. Did you go into English because of that, or like, did you find a passion in that? What made you go into English?
I really do think it's a little bit like what's the family business in a way, if you get what I mean. Like sometimes I think that definitely had a major part in it, that I was looking at people ahead of me. I kind of already knew about things. So for instance, when I got to college and I was reading stuff in my major, that was like my third or fourth time coming to things. So I definitely think prior background experience played a role. You know what I'm saying? Like for instance, I think it's no question that George Bush and his brother Jeb Bush are into politics. It's kind of like the family thing. So that's kind of how I like to think about English. Oh, that's an interesting example that I just used.
Yeah, man, because it's like that. Because I think, you know what I mean? Like, in that sense of who we look up to, you were able to, grow up in this, like, Huxtable style upbringing, where both of your parents are professionals, encourage you to go to school. Hopefully your daddy wasn't raping people, but like, no, I'm just bullshitting. Just bullshitting. But no, but it's funny, right? So within that sense of, like, I joke, but you had a very, like, on the outside looking in, a very like Huxtable-esque kind of upbringing, which you ended up going to Morehouse, right?
Yes.
HBCU. So, like, what made you go into that route of going HBCU versus going anywhere else?
Oh, it was kind of, my parents told me, kind of in a sense, I had to go to an HBCU, at least for undergrad.
Oh, word?
That was kind of pushed too, yeah. Like, no, it was kind of understood. Like, for instance, my parents went to HBCUs. They met at Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee. My brother went to Tougaloo College in Tougaloo, Mississippi, and my sister went to Spelman College. So I guess the thing was, it was understood which black school are you going to, at least for undergrad. And my sister was, my sister was really into me going to Morehouse.
That's interesting. So it's like not only family business, like, yeah. Well, was it ever a sense of, like, to reinforce your blackness? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because here's my thing, right? Like, I think for me, like, I was, in predominantly white school systems. And I think when one of my favorite, like, I'm not a big Cosby Show fan, but one of my favorite shows that I did like was A Different World. And I consider,
I like A Different World too. I was more of a Different World fan.
Yeah, most definitely. I thought, first of all, I consider myself a Hillman alumni. I think you've seen me wear my shirt a couple times. I definitely consider myself a Hillman alumni. And number two, like, Dwayne, I consider myself like Dwayne Wade. Like, niggas slept on Dwayne Wade. He was low-key fresh, and he ended up pulling the baddest bitch on the show. Like, bitches slept on that nigga like the first 2-3 seasons. And then they say he was the smart nigga. Nigga J-Game was fresh. Come on now. Low-key Dwayne Wade was the shit, nigga. Like,
hey, I feel it.
Yo, but within that, like, for me, I wanted to go to Prairie View. Ooh, my people was like, nah.
Yeah,
because my dad went and went buck wild. That nigga was running like check scams and all kind of wild shit. So, so they was like, yeah, we're not gonna have a repeat of that. But it was more like discouraged. So like for you, was that just like a necessary experience for you to stay connected? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, at least, and I'm thinking about this now, and I didn't get it into hindsight. Like, I'm really starting to understand the value of this now. My parents wanted me to know it was not, to be black is not only one thing. They wanted to let me know I was a black person in West Tennessee growing up. and they wanted me to get the idea to be around a lot of different people. So yeah, of course, I was in honors classes and stuff. And growing up, I was typically in my classes, at least, not necessarily at the school, but I was interacting at least intellectually in, class discussions, class debates, class projects with primarily white people. So one of the biggest things I think that I actually learned more about myself was being around a lot of different Black people. So one thing that I always really like about Morehouse is that, like, even though, some would say that Morehouse men are very sure of themselves, but I find that so refreshing to be in a classroom when it's not on you to have the final say about something Black, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Because I think we have this discussion a lot of like, well, before I say that, getting into that, right? So you go from Morehouse, HBCU, Malcolm X flag on the wall, fist in the air.
Probably at Martin Luther King. It's okay.
Oh, you a Martin guy? You a Martin guy versus a Malcolm guy?
You know what? To be for real with you, after going to Morehouse, I think I became a little bit more Martin. Don't get me wrong, I love the rhetoric of Malcolm X, but one of the things I feel more passionate about with King is he was actually doing some organizing. And for me, it's hard for me to get all of my friends who are majority Black on the same page about going to a movie or a vacation. So, you know what I mean? Organizing all of those types of things, taking a march on Washington, I really thought about how radical that was in terms of actually, when you're in a leadership position, you got to compromise so much. So I thought about, Martin made some compromises. And I think if we look at Malcolm X, we see that he started to admire Martin's organizing skills. So I think that's one of the reasons I kind of think I like them both. Why can't I have both?
Oh, no. It's you. No. It's funny. Like, no, I respect that. I respect that opinion. It's just like, I think that's one of those Black community debates. Like, Big or Pac.
Basically nice,
yeah,
right?
Or like, you know what I mean? Martin, Malcolm. Like, wait, which side of the fence you on, my nigga? Like,
yeah. But I think it's so interesting. Actually, I taught this class called Greatest Beefs, and I tried to put rap debates in with like just historical debates. And I think that's the interesting thing about it. We have so much intellectual growth during the civil rights movement because we get to contrast and compare different types of Blackness, Well,
yeah, I love the comparison you made earlier when you were talking about rap beefs and you were comparing rappers with literary authors, with poets. And like Kendrick Lamar just won a Pulitzer.
A Pulitzer, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that goes to show right there. Like, I think that's not saying that we need the verification, but that's the verification right there. Like, yo, rap is an art form. Like, all this mumble rap stuff now, like, it's cool to bob your head to, but like, the real poetry in the art, you know what I mean? Like,
and it's funny that you're saying this about Langston Hughes because I think about what were a lot of the criticisms about him during his heyday. It was that people said he was writing poetry that just anybody could read off the street. That's not art because anybody can read that. You don't have to have a fancy. I mean, I'm watering this down a tad bit, but you don't have to have a fancy, learn it. You don't have to be learned, have this big degree to interpret him. And that was the critique. They were saying he was making poetry just for the everyday person, right? And I think that's the funniest thing. Like, that's actually what we should applaud him for making poetry for everybody.
Yeah, you gotta put the candy in the medicine. So you go from Morehouse, Martin pictures on the wall. You probably had an afro or braids at least. You had, you know what I mean?
I was leaving that suited and booted. I don't know. I was leaving that suited and booted. I don't know. That's interesting that you said that.
So you go from that to a fucking tornado that lands you in the middle of the yellow brick fucking road in Kansas, and it's like, oh, Dorothy. So